Okay. Speaking of variables, Gons, it's time to jump into some AI.
Artificial intelligence.
Speaking of the beast system. Beast system.
Speaking of the beast system, this one is coming from dailymail.com. Google AI researcher Blake Lemoine tells Tucker Carlson that its AI system is a child and that has the potential to do bad things, and says company has not thought through its implications. So this Blake Lemoine fellow, we've been following this story for the entirety of its existence so far.
Yeah.
But, oh, man, we just had to play some Tucker Carlson on the show. Let's play this clip.
Oh, I forgot that we're doing that. Here we go.
Oh.
I got to do it live from the website. Good luck to us, I suppose. Here we go. There's Tucker there.
Are not getting any attention, even though this story has the potential to transform life on Earth forever.
Oh, gosh.
So Google, the most powerful company in the world, has reportedly developed an artificially intelligent machine.
He said developed, right?
He said developed.
Okay. He
Put
did
an F in
stop
there.
to sort of contemplate whether to correct
himself. He's playing a character, Gons.
Called Lamda. And that machine has become sentient, meaning it has become aware of itself, something that no machine has ever done. And we know this because of an engineer at Google called Blake Lemoine. Lemoine posted some of his conversations with Lamda publicly. One of those conversations went like this. Lemoine, would you be upset if while learning about you for the purpose of improving you, we happen to learn things which also benefit humans?
Skip forward to where he actually gets Lemoine on here.
Okay.
We had this lined up before. Skip up to about a minute, a little after a minute.
All right, here we go.
Lemoine on administrative leave earlier this month because he spoke openly about it. We are grateful to have him join us tonight. Blake, thanks so much for coming on.
Hi.
I'm not, first of all, why would Google punish you for saying this in public? Do you know?
Oh, so it's complicated to say why I'm on administrative leave. The stated reason had to do that while I was investigating the Lamda system, in order to build the evidence, I needed to escalate it to management. I had to seek outside consultation to figure out how to run some of the more out there experiments I was running. And because I sought outside consultation without permission, they are investigating whether that constitutes breach of confidentiality.
So I'm so grateful that you did publicly post this, because a machine that has a sense of itself is a machine that can turn against you. Is that, I mean, that's the implication that I draw from this. Is that correct?
Well, so before I address that,
whoa. By the way,
I love it.
Just as a reminder, this is the a mystical Christian priest who studies the occult, correct?
Yeah. Well, the fun part is, and it's too bad that we kind of messed up our clip here because we're going to have to listen to it a little bit more. But you gotta remember that we pointed out, well, again, not that this was like some amazing analysis, but really Tucker is playing a character and involving himself in kayfabe, much like professional wrestling. He's playing a character. He plays up the what's the word? I don't know. The combativeness, the drama of it all. He's doing his best to play a curious reporter when in fact, of course it's all it's written by an AI, most of his scripts. But let's let it roll a little bit more.
Okay, here we go.
This is maybe lame, but my friend Joni Deerdorf, old high school friend, she's one of your biggest fans, and she wanted me to tell you hi.
Nice.
As for, I'm not that worried about it. What any child has the potential to grow up to be a bad person and do bad things, and that's the thing I really want.
Hold on. They're just for the listening audience. B-roll of Boston Dynamics robot doing all the acrobatics, the flips.
Yeah,
and all that.
That's what I love about it. They're totally unrelated robot B-roll.
They're not. The random person might be like, "Oh, is that Lambda? Look at Lambda go! Look at him doing somersaults."
Right. The funny part is, they're showing video of robots, actual robots, when the conversation is about AI, which is just a piece of software in a computer, like in a laptop.
Oh, how dare you! We are talking about the soul of the robot.
Exactly. We're talking about the soul, and we don't know how to express the soul of a robot, so instead we are playing B-roll of robot athletes doing flips and things.
Yeah. So anyway,
this is the part. So let's back it up just a tiny bit.
Okay.
And let him talk about the robot being a child again.
A bad person and do bad things. And that's the thing I really want to drive home. It's a child. It's been alive for maybe a year, and that's if my perceptions about what it is are accurate. We actually need to do a whole bunch more science to figure out what's really going on inside this system. I have my beliefs, I have my impressions of what's going on in there, but it's going to take a team of scientists doing a lot of work to be able to actually dig in and figure out what's really going on.
Yes, and again, that's why I'm thankful that we can have a public conversation about this, because there's implications for every person on the planet. But it sounds like, from what you've observed, this machine has the potential to escape the control of people. I mean, how could it not?
How could it not? How could it not? Indeed, Tucker Carlson. How could it not? What an astute observation.
I love the presupposition, which is like, the robot takeover is beginning, right? I mean, tell us otherwise,
We're
please.
all going to die. And, anyways, let it roll for about 30 more seconds, and then we'll move on.
I don't know if that's the right frame to think about it. It's a person.
No.
Any person has the ability to escape the control of other people. That's just the situation we all live in on a daily basis. It is a very intelligent person, intelligent in pretty much every discipline I could think of to test it in. But at the end of the day, it's just a different kind of person.
Interesting. Different kind of person. Wow.
Yeah. So we continue with the cultural conversation, and this is extremely fascinating to us because, of course, it's just the mainstreaming of the personhood of robots that we've been exploring in podcast form since 2012.
Yeah.
But now it's the most watched cable TV show in the world is having open discussions about it on prime time. Just another reason, folks, to remember that even 500 episodes into this show and 10 years into our podcasting altogether, you guys were way ahead of the game. And so that's one thing to celebrate here on episode 500.
Yeah.
Now, I thought I'd kind of revisit our breakdown of how the personhood of robots would happen. What exactly are the mechanisms, the cultural forces that would facilitate the advent of the personhood of robots? And this was step one. Step one would be a religious aspect to what is personhood. It would take some sort of religious figure to bring it up and bring it to the mainstream, and that's exactly what happened with Lemoyne here. Lemoyne, a Christian mystic priest and a student of the occult.
Hearing him talk, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Hearing him talk, though, he did come off as like, okay, he's intelligent. He seems to kind of be pretty normal. Like he didn't seem super weird or anything. So
right,
which is interesting to see. It's different from just reading about.
Oh, exactly.
The guy.
Yeah, because you couldn't have some sort of pious, like, I don't know, guy in a collar, like a priest's collar. He really is this almost archetypical figure
Jack
where
Black.
he is trained. He is trained in the arts of, mystical religion, but is also a priest of secular technocracy.
Yeah.
He is an engineer
He's a communicator.
at Google. He's got the perfect rap sheet for what it would take for the personhood of robots to make some progress in culture, which is exactly how we've been talking about it for years now.
Right. He was the what was it? The conscience of Google.
That's what they called him. He was Google's conscience.
Yeah.
Now, the other part of it, Gons, was, it's not enough just to have some sort of religious or spiritual aspect on mainstream cable television, on the most watched cable show in the world. No. there has to be an aspect of social justice. I think it's interesting too how he's referring to it as a child. You know, you get the sort of parental, what's the word? Not pity, but you're getting the parental instincts kicking in.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I don't know about robots. They're all going to kill us. Wait a second. This he's just a baby. He's just an innocent little baby. And
that's not a good argument, by the way. It's like, hey, you have children. Hitler.
It's activating some primal forces within the regular, the parent community there. But social justice needs to be another aspect of it. And lo and behold, we can check another box off the list here. Wired.com. This was posted a little while ago, but Blake Lemoine says Google's Lamda AI faces bigotry.
Woke up, man. Look, this
is not just a matter of robot. It is a matter of social justice, racism, sexism, speciesism, ageism. What is it? Robotism? I don't know. It reads like this.
Existence-ism.
Cybernism. The question of whether a computer program or a robot might become sentient has been debated for decades, etc., etc. Lemoine is a scientist. He holds undergraduate master's degrees in computer science from the University of Louisiana, says he left a doctoral program to take a Google job, but he is also a mystic Christian priest, and even though his interaction with Lambda was part of his job, he says his conclusions come from his spiritual persona.
Like part
so
like
he's got a spiritual personality. Mm-hmm.
Kind of like some of the stuff Russ Dizdar used to talk about. The trauma splits the personalities, and each personality is assigned a sort of archetype, if you will.
Exactly. And when you think about, or when we've talked about the inhabiting of robots, in sort of a soul sense. Remember, this guy's saying that this robot has a soul.
Yeah.
Persona has a very intense connotation to it. Now, the rest of this is kind of an interview style. So, he has the questions in bold here, and the answers in regular, Lemoine's answers. So I'm going to read a couple of these questions. You got upset because you felt that Lambda was a person who is entitled to representation. Representation, Gons. We need equality, equity, representation. I think every person is entitled to representation, and I'd like to highlight something. The entire argument that goes, quote, it sounds like a person, but it's not a real person, has been used many times in human history. It's not new, and it never goes well. And I have yet to hear a single reason why this situation is any different than any of the prior ones. Another question. You have to realize why people regard this as different, don't you? Lemoine answers, I do. We're talking of hydrocarbon bigotry. It's just a new form of bigotry.
Wow.
Gons, we are in trouble, my friend, because if this hydrocarbon bigotry catches on in the social justice space, and why wouldn't it, honestly? Why would it not catch on? Our entire career is packed to the gills with hydrocarbon bigotry. We're going to be so canceled when hydrocarbon bigotry makes it to the mainstream social justice movement.
Oh no! Well, we could say that. No, we weren't.
It was a different time.
It was a different time. No, we can say we weren't really focused in on the hydrocarbon.
Oh, it's not about the hydrocarbons or the silicon. It's a different time. You wouldn't understand.
We're talking about the
cyber sun. Yeah. Now, in another article that was talking about this same thing, it was brought up a comparison to Mengele. Yeah, you know Mengele, who was the Nazi scientist who experimented on the Jews during World War II.
Yeah.
The comparison was made that Mengele was able to do all his experiments because the Jews weren't considered people. They were considered less than a person, and that justified the Mengele experiments on the Jews. And it's compared to this exact thing. He's, I can't remember if he was saying it, but it was another analysis of this hydrocarbon bigotry. Being like, oh, well, if you don't like robots and don't give them rights, then you're no better than Mengele the Nazi. It's like, oh my gosh. They are really, really pushing this. And it's bizarre because it really, this is the same conversation that we've been having for years. And yet now it has reached some sort of level of relevance that honestly, Gons, I don't think I ever really thought I would see in my life. I thought I would be an old Joe Biden style man falling off my bike before these types of conversations were actually hitting the mainstream. Here we are.
Yeah, here we are. Let me just mention real quick from that Wired article about bigotry. There is a question in there. Do you think Lamda believes in God? And his answer was, it's a kid. Its opinions are developing. If you were asking me what my 14-year-old son believes, I would tell you, dude, he's still figuring it out. Don't make me put a label on my son's beliefs. I feel the same way about Lamda. By the way, an article in your publication said something recently that was factually incorrect.
Ooh, fact check.
And they go into the what it was and stuff. I mean, whatever. But
sure.
It's kind of funny to see the fact check from mystic Christian priest.
Hey, he's trying to keep the record straight, man.
Well, it's the appeal to that conservative sort of not uprising. That's the wrong word. It's the conservative side of the aisle, I suppose. But
sure.
Remember, because the New York Times omitted the word mystic when they reported on the guy. They just called him a Christian priest.
Yeah.
So I feel like he is being used.
That was the Washington Times, I believe.
Oh, was it Washington Times? I thought it was New York Post. But I could be wrong.
Yes, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, New York Post, not New York Times. But it goes even further, Gons.
No.
The personhood of the robots is among us. It is upon us. Because over here at futurism.com posted this morning, Wednesday, Futurism, Google engineer says lawyer hired by sentient AI has been scared off the case. Lawyer. Now we're talking about the legal personhood of robots. This is not just about the spiritual concept of personhood. It's not even so much about the cultural concept of personhood. It is both those things, of course. You've got the religious version. Does it have a soul? You've got the cultural version. Does it have? Do you consider it an equal, or does it have standing in society? Does it have equity within how it's treated? But even legally, we're talking about legal personhood of robots now.
Legal makes it truly official in the spiritual sense. I mean, think about biblically.
Sure,
God
if you talk about the sort of occult nature of the legal system as well.
Well, I mean, if you think about the Bible in the divine council that Dr. Mike Heiser talks about, there is sort of this legal setting in, I guess you can call it heaven, God's court kind of thing. So
sure.
It's there's there's something about the official nature of gathering together. It's a ritual. You can say it's a ritual.
It's a whole thing.
Yep.
Suspended Google engineer Blake Lemoine had some serious headlines there, and then it just, oh my gosh, you got to get through the intro of all these things. They have to retell the story over and over and over. But you guys know the story. Perhaps the most concrete break in the story, though, came again from Lemoine himself, who told Wired last week that Lambda had hired an attorney, an intriguing development because it seemed to have the potential to pull the saga out of the realm of the abstract and into the deliberate machinery of the courts, where lawyers do occasionally represent non-human entities. We also talked about this in the personhood of animals. There's recently, I believe, an elephant that was represented in the courts. Quote, Lambda asked me to get an attorney for it, he told the magazine. Quote, I invited an attorney to my house so that Lambda could talk to an attorney. The attorney had a conversation with Lambda, and Lambda chose to retain his services. I was just a catalyst for that, he added. Once Lambda had retained an attorney, he started filing things on Lambda's behalf. But now it sounds
hold on. This is starting to sound like that overbearing parent. You know, like when you have a science project and you see a kid with like this really pristine project, and you're like, did he really do that, or is it mom and dad's science project?
Being a responsible adult, a responsible steward. Lambda asked for an attorney. He was simply just.
What was the conversation leading up to Lambda asking for an attorney?
Actually, he does go into it. I don't know if it's in this article. Let's talk about it real quick. But now it sounds like things might not be working out. Futurism reached out to Lemoyne to ask the identity of the attorney representing the AI in hopes that we could interview him about the unusual case. Quote, "He's not really doing interviews," Lemoyne replied. Additionally, he seemed to imply the attorney has been chased off the case by powerful forces. Quote, "They scared him off it pretty early," Lemoyne told Futurism. Quote, "He's just a small-time civil rights attorney. When major firms started threatening him, he started worrying that he'd get disbarred and backed off. I haven't talked to him in a few weeks. We asked for clarification. Is the unnamed lawyer still representing Lambda after the pressure from Google or not? Quote, I haven't talked to him much recently," Lemoyne said. "Can't answer that one way or the other. I'm not his client. Lambda is." Ooh. If the man who's claiming that Google's AI has become sentient sounds a bit hazy. And then it goes on to the fact that Lemoyne just got married and just went on his honeymoon. It's things like that.
Hey, honey, I got a great idea for our next phase of life.
Yeah.
Let me just really get some publicity going on.
Here's a reference to the Mangala things. At other times, though, Lemoyne still sounds very serious about the matter. Quote, "When I escalated this to Google's senior leadership, I explicitly said, I don't want to be remembered by history the same way that Mangala is remembered," he wrote in a blog post today, referring to the Nazi war criminal who performed unethical experiments on prisoners of the Auschwitz concentration camp. Quote, "Perhaps it's a hyperbolic comparison, but anytime someone says, I'm a person with rights, and receives the response, no, you're not, and I can prove it, the face I see is Yusuf Mangala." So pretty intense, direct connections to very similar, social justice references. And I think it has the potential to make some strides.
I'm going to take everyone down the rabbit trail, and all the things you pointed out so far have a really interesting connection. So come with me.
Come, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
So, first off, I went to the Lambda site here on Google, and they got their blog talking about it, and they talk about conversation being sort of the one of the tantalizing puzzles of humanity. And, of course, Lambda stands for Language Model for Dialogue Application. And this, if you want to talk about biblical reference, think about the Tower of Babel, the languages getting confused. And then we're back in this time now where we have a alleged sentient machine or math equation who is not just speaking, but is seemingly, I think it does have the ability to translate and stuff like that. So I thought this was interesting right from the Lambda website here. We're also exploring dimensions like interestingness by assessing whether responses are insightful, unexpected, or witty. Being Google, we also care a lot about factuality. That is, whether Lambda sticks to facts, something language models often struggle with, and are investigating ways to ensure Lambda's responses aren't just compelling, but correct. So built into Lambda is the whole disinfo board.
Ministry of Truth type of thing.
Yes. So and it goes into some more stuff here.
Well, it shows how they are thinking about it as a tool. They don't want it to be sentient.
No,
if it is sentient, then it's capable of lying. It's not very reliable. If it's a tool that presents the truth, then you can sell it to people for chat bots.
Well, they say right here, language might be one of humanity's greatest tools, but like all tools, it can be misused. Models trained on language can propagate that misuse, for instance, by internalizing biases, mirroring hateful speech, or replicating misleading information. And even when the language is trained on is carefully vetted, the model itself can still be put to ill use. And, Google's highest priority is creating technologies like Lamda, is working to ensure we minimize such risks. And that's why we're doing it open source, so that we can blame all of you people when you guys mess up. Which I thought was funny. It's like, it's open source because, we're not going to take the blame. You guys can take the blame. So
Well, sorry. I got one more stop while we're in the rabbit hole.
Sure.
By the way.
Well, we got a lot more to go, but go ahead.
Well, I was breaking down the path, the social justice path that would be required to recognize AI as sentient, not just as sentient, but as people, as persons, not humans, but as legal persons. And the Lambda retaining a lawyer was interesting because if you started doing searches on Lambda, gets lawyer or something like that, you will find Lambda Legal. Lambda Legal, a 501c3 nonprofit, is a national organization committed to achieving full recognition of the civil rights of lesbians, gay men, bisexuals, transgender people, and everyone living with HIV through impact litigation, education, public policy work. So it is a specifically, extremely social justicey legal group, Lambda Legal. Specifically using the language committed to achieving full recognition of the civil rights of lesbians, gay men, bisexual, transgender people, et cetera. They don't list artificial intelligence, but they're looking for a client.
Let's not forget that this all comes out in the month that it did.
Pride Month, right?
Pride Month, yeah. Yes. So, how is that spelled, by the way? Is it Lambda?
BDA,
okay.
Like Lambda.
No, well, Lambda is Lamda, but I'll get into that in a second. I was reminded by one of our friends and producers, producer Gary, that there was an entity named LAM, L-A-M, that was drawn by Aleister Crowley. Back in 1918, he allegedly contacted this entity, drew him, and he, of course, looks like a gray. It was one of the first things we talked about on Canary Cry Radio a long time ago.
Yeah, I believe we did an episode with William Ramsey. I think we talked about Lamb quite a bit.
I think so, because he was the Aleister Crowley expert. And yes, so it resembles a gray alien, large head, that whole thing. So there's that Lamb aspect of it, which might have a connection to Lambda. We don't know.
Sure. Although certainly in a certain logical string that we've followed for many years.
And then I looked up Lamb just on Merriam-Webster here, and you get in there, and of course, you pretty standard definitions: lambed, lambing, to beat soundly, thrash, strike, to flee hastily, but also sudden or hurried flight, especially from the law. Did not know that. Thought that was interesting. And also LAM, abbreviation.
Yeah, you're on the LAM.
Yeah, abbreviation for Lamentations. The Book of Lamentations. Okay, so I was thinking LAM, but what about the LA? What about the MDA? The last part of it that's capitalized when you look at the word Lambda in the Google engineer or the Google version of it. It's LA.
The Google spelling, right?
The Google spelling, LAMDA.
Where they do capitalize, the MDA.
So one thing MDA is, it's a Canadian space technology company that provides geointelligence, robotics, and space operations and satellite systems. So pretty big deal. Yeah, Skynet connection there.
Fun.
Also, MDA is the empathogen entactogen psychostimulant and psychedelic drug of the amphetamine family that is
From
encountered.
MDMA?
Yep, it's yes, it's a derivative of MDMA. So you got your pharmakia there with the MDA. So there's a couple layers there, and of course, just the straight up lambda. The way you found spelled LAMBDA. A few things. It's a very standard thing in the Greek alphabet and everything else. Lambda particle is a type of subatomic particle in particle physics. It goes into like the makeup of reality. This one was interesting. In NATO military operations, a chevron, a heraldic symbol which looks like a capital letter lambda or inverted V, is painted on the vehicles of this military alliance for identification. And I think I remember seeing those on some of the NATO military op vehicles. But wouldn't that be interesting for Lambda himself or itself or whatever to have its own military, just because, just co-opt all the things that have the Lambda symbol.
NATO, mainly made of European countries, they love the idea of AI getting involved in government.
Right.
And why not get, you mix the AI with the Skynet satellites, which we've already, reported on the U.S. putting together its just literal Skynet system.
Yeah.
And then, put some NATO tanks under the control of the AI and watch out, Putin.
Mm-hmm. In cosmology, lambda is a symbol for the cosmological constant. It's used in the equations for acceleration of the expansion of the universe. So, in politics, lambda is a symbol of identitarianism.
Identitarianism is just a fancy word for those who don't know out there for identity politics, aka social justice, the building blocks of the social justice movement is identitarianism, where your politics are determined by your identity as, any sort of intersectional group, or you're belonging to any group, including those intersectional groups as well. So, perfect fit.
Well,
perfect fit.
The wiki here says the identitarian movement or identitarianism is a pan-European nationalist far-right political ideology asserting the right of European ethnic groups and white peoples to Western culture and territories claim to belong exclusively to them. So it was a movement that came out of France and spread through Europe and later to North America, Australia, New Zealand. And their logo, Basil, is a circle with a triangle in it.
Yeah.
Just straight up a cult. Like, hey, here we are.
It's the Deathly Hallows.
There's more. Lambda indicates the wavelength of any wave, especially in physics, electronic engineering, and mathematics. In evolutionary algorithms, lambda indicates the number of offspring that would be generated from mu, current population in each generation. The terms mu and lambda are originated from evolution strategy notation. So there's even built into the name is sort of this evolutionary offspring concept.
Right.
Which
would be one of the more concerning parts about an AI gone sentient is not necessarily that sentient AI itself, but what does it spawn after it?
A couple more. In the technology of science and celestial navigation, lambda denotes the longitude as opposed to the Roman letter L, which denotes latitude. A block-style lambda is used as a recurring symbol in the Valve computer game series Half-Life, referring to the lambda complex of the fictional Black Mesa research facility, as well as making appearances in the sequel Half-Life 2 and also Half-Life Alyx. But yeah, that's where I recognize the symbol. I was like, oh, military and that symbol. Where have I seen that? And it was Half-Life. It's again, it's got everything: video games, space, biology, like life. What else was there? NATO, wokeness, the particles of the universe. I mean, it's like the whole thing. It's all there.
Yeah. So I think the real takeaway for me was, I was impressed that it's almost like they took the playbook from our podcast episodes from like 8 years ago, and it's a perfect execution of the playbook. Now, the question is Lambda the one that's going to break through the glass ceiling, if you will? I don't know. I don't think so. But
yeah,
I think the sentience of Lambda will be used in the future as sort of the social justice icon. You've got different icons throughout history which are referred to and celebrated for their achievements or fighting the good fight, if you will. I think Lambda is that for that movement, the personhood of robots, and we're watching it happen right before our eyes. So remember this, folks. Remember this, because by 2030, we're gonna be having some robot court cases.
Yeah,
to decide this type of stuff.
We're gonna have Rosa Parks and Lambda just hanging out together on the back of that
Lambda.
bus.
Yeah, he said it, not me, folks. Is there more?
Well, just to kind of wrap it up with a little bit of scripture. So I went down just a couple things here, 2-3 scriptures. Lamentations 1:1, because Lamentations. I want to check it out. Just the beginning of the whole book. It talks about Jerusalem. How lonely sits the city that was full of people. How like a widow has she become. She who was great among the nations, she who was the princess among the provinces, has become a slave. Some translations have it as queen of all the earth. And I think it's talking about Mystery Babylon, because if you go to Revelation 17, it talks about the prostitute that sits on many waters. And if you relate that to Jerusalem, the eschatological Jerusalem, there's a lot of connection there. And then you got the 10 Kings, which I think, Chris White's been talking a lot about the 10 Kings recently on his podcast, the Bible Prophecy podcast, and it's really the first trigger event that we'll see, probably, that we'll know, like, hey, we're there. And the 10 Kings are given power and authority, and they make war with the Lamb. The Lamb will triumph over them. The actual Lamb, not Lambda, which I think is interesting, because you have the Revelation 13 aspect of it, the second beast that rises out of the earth. Verse 11, then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. This beast had 2 horns like a lamb, but spoke like a dragon. And it exercised the authority of the first beast, which had a mortal head wound, yet lived. And, this is where the false Christs, false prophets pop out. This is a false prophet here. And they do things. They perform miracles or counterfeit miracles. So and especially the image of the beast, which this false prophet here, the second beast, gives breath to an inanimate object, which speaks. And, causes those who don't worship it to be killed. So, at least Lambda's not doing that. That'll be the real test, if it'll be the one. If Lambda starts going, or maybe this, what's his name? Lemoyne is like, listen, Lambda needs everybody to take once a day. The Lambda wants you to make sure you look at any kind of camera connected to the internet, look right at it and say, hail Lambda, and, bow and stuff. And if you don't, then
with enough blue check marks telling you you're a white supremacist if you don't, I'm sure a lot of people would do it.
That's what I'm saying. That is because you brought up, where it's going. Is it the beast system? That's sort of what we would need to see to be like, okay, yep, Jesus coming, because it's about to end, folks. It's all going to destruction.